Welcome. Thank you for clicking this video. In this channel, we going to cover interesting thematic Warframe synergy. From builds, weapons, arcanes, and even a topic that some people consider it taboo, a ribbon. Just like our previous video, we will still use this robotic text-to-speech to present you our build. Not only because English is not our first language, but also robotic text-to-speech give the same vibe as futuristic artist-like narrative for this game. But before we start, we have to clarify something. By all means, we're not an expert like many other wonderful Warframe content creator. We're just a full-time salaryman, enjoying Warframe with friends after a tiring day. So please, if you find the build that we cover, already mentioned by many other experts, treat it as a new point of view. Now the ground rule established. Let's begin. This is the first part of our upcoming Infinity Trilogy Loadout. In this specific loadout series, we will present you our entries of the near-immortal loadout that not bounded by protective dash from vazarin focus school. The loadouts is tested in solo survival steelpath, and may also applicable in other game mode as well. This is our first entry of the Infinity Trilogy Loadouts, a loadout of the broken Warframe, Xaku, the Deathless One. Xaku is product of a community-designed Warframe event that the devs held long time ago. And Xaku, who entered and considered as a meme by some people, surprisingly win. Aesthetically, Xaku is not as pretty as many other Warframe for some people. But in our eyes, Xaku is one of the most beautiful Warframe, seconded only by Nidus. To match Xaku's appearance, Xaku's skill also seemingly weird. Let's take a look at them. Xaku's first skill is Zeta's Whisper. Xaku add void elemental damage to weapon it's held. Void weapon is so unique, mainly only appear in operator's skill and amps. This damage type brings something scary in the table. Void elemental from Zeta's Whisper works in two ways. Enemy that hit by Zeta's Whisper enchanted weapon will be surrounded by greenish bubble. This bubble is a bullet attractor bubble, which means if the target affected by the bubble shoot at us, the bullet will be bounced back to them. The second part of Zeta's Whisper is, any projectile weapon damage with punch through, that shoot to the bubbled target will also bounce back to them, essentially double its damage. There's a lot of interaction about Zeta's Whisper, but sadly in this loadout we will replace the skill with Helmand Subsumed skill. More on that later. Let's take a look at Xaku's second skill, Gasp of Loke. Gasp of Loke is one of the main damage of this loadout. This skill steals weapon from enemies, and use it as a turret that float around Xaku. This turret of weapons will automatically attack enemies. The amount of weapon steal depends on ability range, and the damage is scaled by ability strength. With that scalability, this skill can deal damage insanely high, especially when combined with one of Xaku's third skills. Yes, you heard it right, one of the Xaku's third three skills. Xaku's third skill has three separated skill that can be choose by tapping the button, then can be cast by holding the button. One of its skills called Gaze. Xaku pick one target to bind them, making area around binded target losing their armor. With 200% ability strength, this skill can strip 100% armor of enemies in the area. To make it even absurd, Xaku can bind two enemies, making Xaku can move, bind, kill, move to the next room, bind another enemy, kill again, repeat. This skill is arguably one of the most strongest skill in the game. Xaku's fourth skill is the Vast Untime. Xaku explode and slow enemies around it, leaving only his bone for the rest of its duration. Xaku move faster, and has 75% chance to ignore all damage. And the greatest part of it is, while the Vast Untime active, all Xaku other active skill duration is frozen. With all other skill timers stopped, Xaku only need to recast his fourth skill to maintain the rest of its other skill duration. Despite not freezing Helmand Subsumed skill duration, this skill will make Xaku so efficient in term of energy management. With his default skill set, let's take a look of Xaku overall performance as Warframe. Xaku's first skill can enhance its weapon to make weapon that has punch through or bouncing, like Tenet Arca Plasmor, deal absurdly insane damage. Xaku's second skill will provide insane sustained DPS to Xaku. Gasp of Loke is literally, auto-shot permanent Mace's Peacemaker. Imagine shooting enemies with 10 or more weapon, we can simply stand idle while the turret of weapons do the kill for us. Xaku's third skill is AoE armor strips. With a proper build, Xaku will has 2 area of 0 armor enemies. Xaku's fourth and final skill, will make the energy usage of its skill essentially lowered by third. Xaku only need to cast 1 ability instead of 3. Not to mention it provide additional movement speed, and 75% chance to ignore damage. But sadly, this 75% chance of ignore damage is actually the weakest part of Xaku. Relying on RNG to survive is far from ideal. Many people try to use dodge mechanic through Karna set or Sly Vulpa, but apparently through some testing, dodge and evasion is proven to be 2 different stat that cannot be combined, making this approach is obsolete. Some people then try to rely on crowd control, using augmented shooting gallery helmet subsume skill, muzzle flash, to blind enemies every couple of kills or assists. This approach is very risky, since it puts Xaku survivability in his KPS or kill per seconds. With enemies level getting higher and higher, KPS will be slowed eventually, making this approach is less and less effective in the long run. The latest approach to patch Xaku's survivability is to shut down the AI of the enemies using Octavia's Resonator. This approach works really great, but of course not without a flaw, since this approach will also put Xaku's survivability in the hand of Resonator's AI as well. When enemies come from the area that is not covered by the charm radius of Resonator, they will aim Xaku instead of the Resonator ball. So with this history of making Xaku works, we present our approach of making Xaku, essentially deathless. Thus the loadout name the Deathless One. We change Xaku's first skill to skill that define an immortality in the Warframe universe, Defy. Defy is the subsumed skill of the current most popular Warframe, Wukong. Defy alone has 4 phases. The first phase of Defy is using this skill will makes a Warframe summon Wukong's exalted staff, and perform a charging like immortal state. In this state, our health and shield will be grayed out. Meaning, there's no damage that will be taken in this state. The duration of the charging is scaled by ability duration. The second phase is while charging Warframe who perform Defy, also taunt enemies to attack them. All damage taken caused by the taunt will be absorbed due to its immortal state. The third phase of Defy is to perform a 360 AoE of swing with the exalted staff, dealing damage that calculated by multiplying the absorbed damage when in charging state. The fourth and last phase of Defy is after dealing the multiplied absorbed damage, Defy will give armor buff to the Warframe. This skill really is a godsend for Xaku in our opinion. While charging, Xaku will not lost its offensive capability due the turret from Gasp of Loke that will keep firing enemies. If enemies is still not die from the barrage of shoot from the turrets, the AoE swing from Defy will nuke enemies down thanks to 0 armor debuff from Gaze. The combination of Defy's immortality and nuke, is like a missing puzzle of Xaku's squishy and sustained DPS. Now we explain Xaku's background and our approach, let's dive deeper to the modding section. Unlike complicated synergy of its skills, Xaku modding is quite simple. In Aura, we use brief respite for shieldgatting. Power drift, transient fortitude, and intensify to reach the requirement 200% ability strand, to make our third skill completely armor strip enemies. Stretch and augur reach to make 175% ability range, this value can be translated into 10 turrets of weapons from Gasp of Loke. Prime continuity to rise ability duration back to 128%. Primed flow to increase max energy. Rolling guard as safety belt to recast Xaku's fourth skills. And lastly, equilibrium, to be combined with synth set in our Vulpa, to provide energy regeneration. In Arcane, we use Arcane Energize to accommodate energy usage in this build. Another Arcane slot is free, but in this loadout, I use Arcane Tempo to give my Cedo a proper fire rate. In weapon section, actually we can use any weapon, since the main damage is from our second skill and Defy. Unlike previous video, I will not dive deeper in the weapon sections. For this loadout, you only need weapon either to pop Nullifier Bubble or killing Acolyte. The reason why weapon play in this loadout is quite scary to use is, we only has 3 seconds of iframe from rolling guard to use our weapon. After the 3 seconds of rolling guard expired, we will be so vulnerable to enemies if we use our weapon instead of Defy. Let's go to the gameplay. Here's the skill activation loop you need to maintain. Maintain energy regeneration from Xenuric Energizing - active all the time. Cast 4th skill to AoE slow enemies, pick one target for 3rd skill. Place your gazed enemies strategically. Remember, you can use the skill twice in different places. Cast 2nd skills then use Defy right after that. When you need to recast the 4th skills, use Rolling Guard to safeguard the casting animation. When all enemies dies, move to the next room and repeat the sequence. We will have 3 energy regeneration method, Xenuric Energizing - Equilibrium with Synth Set, and Arcane Energize. This 3 of energy regeneration will help us to spam Defy all the time. And when Acolyte or Nullifier Bubble appear, use Rolling Guard before killing them with weapons. This loadout might be abused Defy's immortality state, but it doesn't mean that this loadout can tolerate mistakes. If we somehow fail to maintain the Deathless loop, Xaku will definitely be killed. Thus conclude our 6th loadouts, the Deathless One. Helminth Subsumed skill makes us have flexibility on building our Warframe. Sometimes the synergy is simply not as good as our expectation, but sometimes, some skill just complete a Warframe. Xaku is broken themed Warframe, combined from several body part of the lost Warframe. That is why Xaku's skill seems weird, but for us, Xaku is one of the most unique Warframe in the game. To be honest, Xaku's loadout might be the longest research we have built to this date. Something always feels off about it, until we finally decide to use Defy to solve Xaku's survivability and nuke capability problem. Before we close this, we had to warn you that this loadout is definitely not for everyone. The spammy nature of this loadout may bore some people. Not to mention we need to remind you that if the skill loop sequences failed to be maintained, Xaku will almost definitely be killed. That might be the only prices you need to pay to play this loadout. If you, like us, intrigued by Xaku and how to build it, give a try to this loadout, it might be the answer you looking for. Thank you for watching. And if you like this type of content, don't forget to like, share, and of course subscribe for more Warframe videos. This is our inner universe. With the Xaku's loadout. The Deathless One.